Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. I tell you, I've been looking forward to this one because we're going to discuss a medicinal herb in just a little bit, and it is, I actually got a request for this one this week. Beautyberry. American beautyberry is a really useful, really fascinating herb, and you will want to grow this one in your yard. You're going to, trust me, you're going to want to get cutting and get this one propagated ASAP. And actually, this time of year is not a bad time to start cuttings. I mean, you can root cuttings from most bushes just in sand and damp sand, and they just kind of sit there through the winter, and they start growing in the spring. If you don't know how to do cuttings, I've got a lot of information in my book, information in my Growing Your Survival Herb Garden for Preppers, Homesteaders, and Permaculture People. And I highly recommend Mike McGroarty. I believe that's the way how you pronounce his name. Mike McGroarty or Mike McGroarty. He is like the plant propagation guru on, he's got a great site. His videos are on YouTube. Just check him out. Love his stuff. He has just so much information on really how to do like basically every landscaping plant you can imagine. And as beautyberry is usually grown as an ornamental, his information is going to be real solid on that. University of Mississippi is the one that's probably done the most research on it. So if you want to check out the horticulture site at University of Mississippi, definitely check that out. But before we get in that, we're actually going to get to my favorite wild edible of all. Okay, this is the one that, I sit here all winter just waiting for this plant to come up. It is my sort of wild plant obsession when it comes to both an edible and medicinal plant. And it's ramps. That's Allium triachum. Ramps are usually called ramsons in Europe. Definitely in England and in Germany and France, they're usually called ramsons. They're not rampion now. Rampion is a different plant. These are common names for both plants, but you do want to differentiate between those because rampions are delicious as well as a wild edible. And if you are of a certain age, you may remember Fractured Fairy Tales from the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. I loved Rocky and Bullwinkle as a kid. It was actually produced, I guess, in the 60s, early 70s, so I saw it as reruns, in the 80s growing up. I am really pleased to inform you that someone has put, if not every episode of Rocky and Bullwinkle, just about the entire run on YouTube. It is hilarious. A lot of the humor was really more for adults than kids. For kids, it was an entertaining show, especially Fractured Fairy Tales. I loved those, but A lot of the humor was actually really very clever, and I'm not. It's not adult humor as in it's dirty or something. It's adult humor and it's intelligent and funny and very clever, and it's definitely worth watching again. Or if you never saw it in the first place, I know a lot of my audience is millennials and Zoomers and all that, and y'all never got to see this show. It is one of the funniest cartoons you will ever see. I mean, if you liked Ren and Stimpy, you will love Rocky and Bullwinkle. Both of them are pretty out there, and both of them were definitely for a mixed audience. I think there are a few I'd put in that category, but these guys that did Rocky and Bullwinkle were really very funny. But anyway, back to ramps. Ramps are one of the first wild edibles that grow in my area in early spring. Like I said, my absolute favorite wild vegetable. Unfortunately, the ramp season is very short. They only grow in specific conditions. Really hard to get ramps to grow in your garden. They don't like wet feet, but they do like a moist soil. I usually find them on a northern facing slope, sometimes a western facing slope. I have seen them growing abundantly though on southern and eastern slopes, but where I usually find them is beside a creek, up elevated from the creek, so they're not getting flooded out, but get plenty of moisture in very rich forest soil. Now, they tolerate sunlight very well, but they like that rich, deep mulch of humus, all the leaves and sticks and everything that breaks down over winters, and a nice deep soil. So I'm not saying you can't grow them, but for me, they're definitely a wild plant. Time to harvest ramps where I live is around Easter, and by the second week of May they will have flowered and gone to seed, and that's it. They're done. They're done for the season. It seems that from the New England states to Pennsylvania, Ohio, ramps are probably a little more widespread than they are here in the South, and that's because they really don't like heat. This is a cold weather vegetable. Cool, temperate Appalachian climate is just ideal. Um, as I said, look for a creek. Look for them on the elevated areas around a creek. Definitely on a north slope for me. And you've got about a month, maybe 6 weeks, depending on weather. Go out there around Easter, where I live. I'm in zone 5B. They'll come up about the same time as the trilliums and around the time of the fiddlehead ferns and such as that. And when you harvest, it's okay to take a few whole plants, the bulbs, but when you take a whole plant, that's it. That plant's not going to regenerate, okay? You can easily wipe out a stand of ramps if you are harvesting the whole plants. There's no need to do that unless you want to take a few bulbs to pickle, which I do because I have abundant ramps. But you never take more than, some people will say you can take a third of the plants that are there. Definitely not with ramps, not because you're taking the whole plant. I wouldn't take more than 5 to 10% at most, and that's in a thick stand of ramps. Much better plan is to just take the leaves, leave the bulbs in the ground. They'll regrow and they'll propagate. The leaves are excellent. The leaves don't pickle, though. The leaves can be frozen. They get mushy, not so good. They can be dried. They get a little kind of an interesting flavor. When they do, they get almost a smoky taste. Not as good as fresh. But one of the nice things about it, if you take the leaves, you can just fill a paper bag with them and stick them in the vegetable tray in your refrigerator, what they call the crisper. Leave the bag open, and they will very, very slowly dry in there, but they'll keep that nice ramp taste. That's the best way I've found to preserve them, short of the couple recipes I'm going to give you here in a minute, which will stretch out your season as well. I eat them fresh, I eat them cooked, I eat them pickled, I eat them in pesto, I eat them every way I can get them. The thing about fresh ramps, though, is ramps are an allium, and a lot of times they'll be called wild leek or wild garlic. Wild garlic's actually a completely different plant. The flavor's so much like leek, but it grows in such a different pattern. I don't really see them as being wild leeks either, but you will see them listed in in that category. They have a very strong onion smell, and you know the rule with alliums. We talked about this before. If it looks like an onion, smells like an onion, it's an onion. Okay, it's really easy to identify. But there are many members of the lily family, the Liliaceae family, which look like wild onions, but can be poisonous. So if you harvest, or if you're harvesting wild onions, wild garlic, anything like that, and it doesn't have that distinctive onion garlic leek smell, do not eat it. Do not eat it at all. Okay, ramps really don't look like onions. They usually have about 3 leaves, and they grow. They're spatulate. They're lanceolate actually. They're wide, and the leaves they'll be about 3 inches tall. They don't grow very big, and maybe an inch wide at the broadest point, tapering into a point at the end. They smell very strongly, and if you eat a lot of raw ramps, so will you. Okay, that's how you know who's been harvesting ramps in the spring. You will smell like garlic from 10 yards away. I mean, there's actually been times in the mountains. I mean, ramps used to be so commonly eaten that teachers would either prohibit the kids from eating wild ramps, or all the windows would have to be open in early April with the snow flying, because it was just such a strong smell from all the kids eating those ramps. And I'm sure church services were pretty piquant as well. But ramps have long been considered a blood cleanser. And that's because, like a lot of the alliums, they have antiseptic, antibiotic, and immune supportive properties. So this is something you would eat in the spring in hopes of not catching a spring cold or flu. And, if you do eat them raw, and that is the best way to have them medicinally, you will sweat the smell will be on your breath, you will absolutely stink of ramps. But that's a sign that they are very potent medicinally. They literally permeate your entire system with that good antiseptic, antibiotic, immune supporting, cholesterol lowering, you name it, qualities of leeks and onions and garlic and shallots and everything that's wonderful, even chives in the allium family. I'm an allium fanatic. I literally cook with alliums every single day. There's an old saying among French Cajuns and Creoles and such, that we can't cook without onions and garlic. It just is not done. Okay, that it goes in everything. So the main lookalike in the early spring for the ramp specifically is lily of the valley. Lily of the valley looks a lot like ramps if you're not familiar with them. I mean, for the untrained eye, you could easily mistake it when it's just coming out of the ground. Now, lily of the valley, I think I've done a show on that. A really interesting plant. If not, I'll try to do one soon. It has a digitalis-like effect on the heart. So in small amounts, it can slow the heart rate and lower blood pressure. It can actually help regulate the heart rate. Small amounts, it's very medicinal and very useful. A little too much can stop your heart. You will die. So you want to be very careful to identify the ramp by the smell. And if the first one, you need to dig up and cut the bulb open and get a good sniff of it, even though the leaves should be pretty strong smelling. I mean, it's really hard to mistake that smell. Do so, okay? It's worth harvesting that plant to not die, obviously. Ramps are strong, like I said, in both flavor and scent, but they're not particularly hot. If you eat raw garlic, it's really hot. I mean, it'll burn your tongue. Some onions are the same. I've got some really awful onions from the grocery store recently. They were probably stored yellow onions, and they were so strong. I mean, really, just about put you off onions. They were that strong. But of course, that means they're good for you. So I ate them anyway. I just ate them cooked instead of having much raw in a salad or anything. But ramps are more like a shallot or a leek in flavor. They used to say a shallot is an onion with a college education. What does that mean? Well, it means it's more mild. It doesn't have that burning bite to it. It's not going to make your eyes water. It's just, they call it a more sophisticated taste. I just say it's maybe a little sweeter and a little less pungent. And ramps are sweet. They're very nice. They're not hot. Flavor of ramps is absolutely superb. I think it's the very best member of the entire family. I love them raw. I love them cooked when they're in season. I'll throw them in with any savory dish, any salad, especially with dandelion greens and other spring greens. And and all I do is I cut the tops off with a sharp pocket knife. Now, invariably, I do end up pulling up a few, and that's the number of bulbs that I harvest. If the knife doesn't go through cleanly and it pulls the bulb out of the ground, that's my rule of thumb. I throw that one in the basket, you know. But the bulbs are so they're actually really good to roast or glaze. Okay, have I told you how to glaze before? You can do this with pearl onions. You can do it with a lot of stuff. Yeah, pearl onions were probably the most common. Some people do glazed carrots, but that's a little too sweet for me. Anyway, you just put them in a pan with a little bit of stock and a little bit of sugar and a little bit of sherry, if you like, and just cook them very slowly until they turn brown, and the syrup of the sugars, has glazed them. It will give them like a glazed donut look. And a lot of times I don't like sweet and savory combination, but with onion and ramps, oh my gosh, that's good. With a nice pork chop or a steak, you cannot beat that. Ramp bulbs and radishes actually go particularly well together, especially with roasted meat, beef, chicken, pork, game, whatever you like. Glazed ramp bulbs with carrots. That's about the only time I will use the glazed carrot recipe, and just cook them together just like that. It's amazing. But actually, I do prefer them with radishes. But if you have kids, and they like sweet things, that's a real good way to introduce them to wild foods and get them to eat the vegetables. Obviously, just excellent. They really are excellent. But the tops and the bulbs can be used together as well. They pair wonderfully with potatoes. Really cook them in a natural fat. I mean, duck fat, of course, but butter, olive oil, anything like that is just going to be amazing. Just remember, any way you would cook pearl onions or shallots works perfectly for the bulbs of ramps. But I'm going to focus on the tops because that's really, like I said, that's the part we want to harvest. We want to save those ramps for the next generation. And they're actually important wild food for critters as well, So ramp pesto. Now, this is actually fairly popular in Europe, and I think a lot of foragers in the United States, this is like one of their go-to recipes. You will find recipes for ramp pesto all over the internet. Here's what I do. Of course, basil is the original herb used for pesto, and pesto actually comes from a mortar and pestle. That's how you would crush up the basil. And, if you're an herbalist, hopefully you have a mortar and pestle. They come in very handy. Also great for grinding spices. Sure, you can use a little coffee grinder. Food processor works fine for ramps. I do things the old-fashioned way. You know me. But it's really simple. The original recipe, as I said, is just a combination of basil, pine nuts, Parmesan or Asiago, any pecorino is very traditional, any kind of hard Italian salty cheese, olive oil, garlic, salt, and pepper. And you just grind it all together and it makes a paste. So pesto is not so much of a recipe as a technique. And it comes with the paste made from grinding in a mortar and pestle. So you can use many herbs in place of basil. A friend of mine makes a great pesto from carrot tops. The carrot tops we usually throw away when we harvest our carrots from the garden. Really good. I often use parsley, but I'm telling you, when ramps are in season, ramp pesto is a must. I mean, it is like the thing I crave. And it's so easy, okay? A cup or more of ramp tops. But I'm just eyeball it at about a cup, right? You can make a smaller amount if you need to. Just adjust, About a fourth a cup of your favorite tree nuts or sunflower seeds, etc. I often use pecans, hickory nuts, black walnuts. If I have them, almonds, certainly hazelnuts, sunflower seeds work perfectly. I'm sure you could use sesame seeds if you wanted to. I've never tried that. I don't see why it wouldn't work. Little small for my taste, a little fiddly, but if you've got a mortar and pestle, you could mash those out pretty well. Gosh, I guess you could even, well, anyway, maybe a little tahini. I mean, if you didn't have that and you wanted the sesame flavor, I've never tried that. That's just right off the top of my head. About a fourth cup of your favorite grated hard cheese. Definitely. Parmesan is the go-to, but anything you want. You can also make it with blue cheese. Now, it's not going to have the same texture, but ramps and blue cheese come together so well, and it's not going to have the same texture. It's I've done that before. I usually will make my ramp pesto and then add crumbled blue cheese or feta or something like that, because it gets you want a dry cheese to use in the mortar and pestle, or you're going to end up with a real mess, basically. Yeah. About a fourth cup or more of olive oil and crushed red pepper to taste. I use a lot. I like spicy food. Little lemon zest or wood sorrel, even rose hips. But wood sorrel is often coming in the spring. It's what people call shamrocks. It's got a nice lemony flavor to it. So I, in that case, would do like a half cup ramps and a half cup wood sorrel because they're all going to blend together just fine. And salt and pepper to taste. Super easy. You can grind it all up with a mortar and pestle. You can toss it in a food processor. You can use a blender. I just kind of roughly mince them a lot of times and don't even grind them. I just kind of combine it with a spoon. I mean, I like things kind of rough and rustic, but if you're in a restaurant or something, you need to do things fancy. Grind the nuts fine though, because that's what's going to give it that nice emulsified texture. And either way, just blend it together in a smooth sauce. Taste and adjust your seasonings. Feel free to add any herbs you like. Just using ramps as the base. And ramps, remember, are very strong flavors, so they're going to overwhelm most other herbs. So I wouldn't add anything really delicate to it. And if you find the flavor too bold, though, I feel sorry for you because that's one of the best things you could eat. But you could actually chop in some fresh spinach just to mellow it out a little bit. You're not going to taste the spinach whatsoever. It's not going to hurt anything. Now, ramps come around in Easter, as I've said, and off the most common way I eat this. We have a tradition in the South. I don't know if y'all have it elsewhere, but we have ham for Easter. And wonderful smoked ham, pesto, a little bit of blue cheese. It's so good. You got that pungent, funky saltiness of the blue cheese working with that really strong allium flavor of the ramps and a little hot pepper and a little lemon. And it's just amazing. I mean, really good. I eat far too much of that, actually, most years. Another great way to use ramps is making a French onion style ramp soup. And again, this is my favorite soup. This is another one of those things I crave, and it's so simple if you have the right ingredients. A pot of good French onion soup is always made with homemade stock. I mean, for the good stuff. Now, if you got to buy it in a can or you got to buy it in a carton, carton's better than the can. Definitely do try to make your own stocks. And I like to do mine with beef bones. I actually usually get them from the grocery store. You have them, they're called soup bones. All I do is pop them in the oven with vegetable scraps, whatever I've got. I'm talking tomato peels, onion skins, bits of celery, carrot, scraps, right? Put it in the oven and just roast them till everything's brown. What I do then, because I don't like a lot of fat in my soup, is I take a little spoon and I scoop out all the marrow from the bones and I save it. I may add a little bit in the soup later, but I like to be able to control the fat. I never like to have a very fatty stock. You can use that bone marrow so many ways. You can put it in some ground beef and make a hamburger. It's going to be the best hamburger you've ever had, especially if you top it with butter because it just works really well together. I guess it's not kosher, but it's delicious. Like I said, you can add a little to a soup. You can actually mix it in with butter and make a compound butter of beef marrow and butter. And if you do that, you can also chop some ramps in there, and you have a compound ramp butter, and it's, oh my gosh, is that good. You put that on a steak, that is going to blow your mind. I mean, really good. So you can absolutely use all ramps if you have enough, but it takes a lot of onions to make French onion soup. So I'll use about 3 pounds of finely chopped onions, let that be my base, and then just add the ramps as an extra treat. It just makes the best onion soup there is. But I mean, rarely do I have 3 pounds of ramps, I'm going to use maybe a cup or two of ramps, tops, and some garlic and definitely some onions. And most French onion soups really are a combination. It's onion with garlic and shallot or leek. And of course, leek is the one that tastes most like ramps, really, and a nice sweet flavor And so, yeah, anything you got. I mean, chop it up, It makes sense really just to stretch out your ramps with onions, but whatever you got is fine. And the great thing about this is it allows you to use the ramps out of season. Like I said, ramps don't really dry or freeze well. They do pickle wonderfully, but of course you can't use that in the soup, and you're only using the bulbs for pickles. But you can dry the ramps in the refrigerator, or use them slowly. Like I said, in a paper bag. They'll lose a little sweetness. They may take on just a tiny bit of like a dark, somewhat smoky flavor. Even that actually is a real plus in the soup. It's really good. So chives could certainly be added to it. When they dry, they almost have more of the flavor of chives. Now, for the soup again, you could freeze the ramps. They will turn mushy, but that's not going to be a problem in soup. In fact, if I have frozen ramps, this is the way I'm going to use them. So ingredients, as many ramp tops as you're willing to use, and at least a pound of onions, preferably 3. Several cloves of garlic. Usually we use maybe even a whole head of garlic for this, but at least a half. Anything you like to add to that? Leek, shallot, chives, wild onions, spring onions, whatever you got. Shallots, scallions, whatever. Real stock, okay, this is going to be chicken or beef or game stock would be just fine. Some good olive oil or other natural fat. Beef fat is really nice, suet or tallow. Chicken fat, duck fat is always the best. Olive oil will be fine. Butter, certainly, and you're going to want to add butter either way you look at it. Bacon fat. Bacon fat's fantastic. Just don't let it get too salty. It's going to, bacon fat brings with it that smoky saltiness. Some other herbs, parsley's great, marjoram, savory, all really good. White wine and sherry or other fortified wine, or bourbon or brandy. Either one of those will work just fine. Brandy's actually probably my go-to on this one. Swiss cheese or any other good melting cheese with a good rich flavor. Swiss cheese and Emmental or Gruyere, very traditional. And a good slice of homemade rustic bread. You want a hearty piece of bread. You don't want, Wonder Bread for this. You want a nice chew to that bread. All right, so instructions. Finely slice and chop the onions. Cook them on a low, medium, or medium-low heat. Lower the better, in the oil with a good pinch of salt. You're going to leave them there until they truly, perfectly caramelize. They are going to cook down basically to mush and then turn deep brown. That's the caramelization of the sugars. And that is the key to the flavor of this, in addition to a good stock, which I'll give you my recipe for in just a moment. But once all the water's evaporated, the sugars will begin to caramelize, and you're going to know they're ready when this just amazing sweet smell just absolutely fills your house. People will be standing outside of your house on the street salivating. It's wonderful. So some people do add a little sugar or sherry to help that process. I don't. I have before. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't really find it necessary, and I don't like a lot of sweetness in my food. So add a little more oil and butter or bacon fat into the soup pot and cook in your ramps. Add your crushed chopped garlic once the alliums are mostly cooked. Be careful not to burn the garlic, of course. Add the caramelized onions back into the cooked ramps. Stir in the stock and at least a glass of white wine. You don't have to go overboard with it. Season to taste with herbs, salt, and pepper. Simmer low and slow until everything comes together into a rich, full-bodied soup. Then, cut the bread into about the size and shape of your serving bowls and fry it lightly in butter. And you're making this a crouton. That's a traditional crouton. It's a fried piece of bread. And fill ramekins or any kind of bowls that can go in the oven without breaking because you're going to stick them under the broiler. So you don't want something that's going to crack in a hot oven. Ramekins are the best, okay? A lot of people don't even know what a ramekin is anymore. It's basically a little oven-proof casserole dish about the size of a soup bowl. You can probably pick them up at any thrift store, probably 3 for $1. I mean, people just don't even know what they are anymore. Fill it about 3/4 full of soup, okay? Add a splash of sherry or brandy. That's where you add the alcohol you're going to taste. So use what you like there. Like I said, brandy's really nice. Bourbon is particularly good with that caramelized onion flavor. And then put the crouton, that fried piece of bread, and then you fry it so it doesn't become soggy. Okay, it's not going to absorb the soup. Put it on top. Cover the bread with grated cheese. Paste on a baking sheet or something. Put them in the oven. Turn on the broiler. Cook just till that cheese is brown and bubbly. Take it out carefully with, oven mitts or something so you don't burn your hands because it's going to be really, really hot. Pour yourself a glass of wine and enjoy. You will be amazed. Most times I would rather have honest French onion soup the way I make it than the finest steak. I mean, it is seriously good. And of course, it also goes really well with a steak as a side dish. But it's a meal. I mean, it's gonna blow your mind. So I'm gonna tell you my stock recipe here in just a second. But as I've mentioned several times over the last few months, I've been using a product called Magic Mind. It's an herbal product. They now have two. There's one that includes some green tea and caffeine, and there's one that includes some amino acids and herbs to help you sleep. And really very nice. The company was made to increase mental clarity and focus. So that's what the original Magic Mind was made for. But of course, you can't be at your best, you can't focus without a good night's sleep. So the new project, Magic Mind Sleep, they sent me a sample of it, and I really do like it. It's got some good herbs in it. It's got some ashwagandha. It's got some kava kava. Yeah, I love kava kava. It's got a little chamomile. Chamomile's nice and relaxing. It's got a few amino acids. It's got GABA, 5-HTP, L-theanine. It's got valerian, of course, one of our very best sedative herbs. Passion flower, lemon balm. We've talked about all those for relaxation, muscle relaxation, sleep, etc. Lavender. It's got magnesium. Of course, magnesium helps with muscle cramping and such as that. And it's actually quite tasty. I'm not exactly sure how I would describe the taste. It's got a little bit of chamomile flavor, a little bit of plum and monk fruit, I think they listed on the package. Really nice. Now, as you know, I have trouble sleeping. That's always been one of my biggest issues. So whenever there's a good product like this that helps me to sleep, I'm, of course, very interested in it, and I've been using it for about a week or so. And, yeah, it's actually very effective and very nice. It doesn't have any melatonin in it, which I don't mind melatonin. I take melatonin on, every now and then, but it's a good one. And they recommend that you take that at night before bed, and then in the morning take the Magic Mind Mineral Performance Shot. Well, that also has some excellent ingredients. It has vitamins like C and D3, B2, B3, B12, lion's mane mushroom. Really good for the brain, really good for the immune system as well. It's got bacopa and ashwagandha, which are both a little bit relaxing. It's got L-theanine. It's got turmeric, great for the immune system. For energy, though, it gives you rhodiola and cordyceps, which are adaptogenic herbs, and a little matcha, a little green tea for a little bit of caffeine. And yeah, it's really nice. It does help with focus and mental clarity, but it doesn't make you jittery like coffee. They now have this concept, they're calling it mental wealth. Okay? They're saying mental wealth is about investing in habits that can build your resilience to future challenges, like creating a mental savings account that you can draw from when time gets tough. Well, good night's sleep, some good supportive herbs really do give you an advantage in that regard. But of course, they have their 5-pillar sleep diet, exercise, stress management, and exogenous compounds. Those exogenous compounds being what we've been discussing. It's a good quality product. They say if you use the morning one and then the evening one, you get 24 hours of improved mental performance and clarity. I've only been using the one for sleep for about a week, but yeah, it is nice. I'm getting a better night's sleep. And these are also all immune supportive products, which of course is very important this time of year with all the viruses going around and such as that. Now, here's the cool thing. They've just rolled out the new sleep product, and they're offering my listeners a really great discount. If you get one of each, a bundle, with the mental focus and the sleep shots, you can get them 45% off. And that's just a really fantastic deal for a really good quality product. I'm very impressed with the company. The quality of their ingredients, the quality of their product really is just top notch. Great guarantees on the product. They even give 5 cents per bottle to mental health charities that help homeless folks. So that's really good. They got a lot of good people on staff, a lot of endorsements from doctors, and yeah, I mean, I just really like it. So take advantage of this if you can. They will ship. They ship to over 65 countries, and they have a 100% refund, no questions asked guarantee for up to 100 days after buying it. So that's really pretty amazing, okay? You may be able to find it in some stores, but this bundled package of both the mental performance shot and the sleep shot, and when I say shot, they're just these little 2-ounce bottles, so that's why they're called shots. 45% off for your first order. So that is just great. The code is magicmind.com /JCarroll, JAN. So this is January promotion for Judson Carroll. Again, it's JCarrollJAN. All right, now let's talk about real stock. This is, like I said, the best cooks always waste the least amount of food. Absolutely true in making stock. Many home cooks find stock daunting because old recipes include like several pounds of bones and scraps of beef and veal and pork, and oftentimes after roasting, simmering it for like 2 days or more and constantly skimming off fats and proteins. So you have this like pure consomme by the time it's over. But see, in past centuries, that labor, that time-consuming process just came naturally because the stock pot was always kept on the back of the stove or the fireplace, and you added to it your scraps from each day. So it was just this ongoing stock pot. And if you can do that, if you have a wood stove or if you're set up to do that, you're going to make the best food on earth. That is actually what differentiates, what sets apart the very best restaurants in the world. And this is true of almost all cultures, whether it's a fine French restaurant, Vietnamese, Chinese, I don't care what it is. Irish, they do this in Ireland and in more traditional homes, Wales even. I mean, they keep that stock pot going all the time. And that's actually the way my grandmothers cooked. They kept that pot on the back of the stove, and bones went into it, and that's a base for so much scraps. You don't throw anything away. Anything that you could use, I mean, yeah, we actually had to keep scraps for chickens and pigs and such as that, but anything we could spare would go into that pot, and you always had a base for a gravy, a base for a sauce, a bowl of soup when you wanted it on a cold day. A lot of times I'll keep a seafood-based stock pot going with like shrimp shells and fish bones and herbs and spices. And I've told you this before, that's like my favorite thing, to have a cup of that before going out on a cold morning to go fishing or hunting or even whatever. It's really very, very good. But, in modern kitchens, we don't have to do it quite that way. We can make things in smaller quantities. Simple brown stock. Like I said, get some beef bones. You can eat some beef bones. They used to sell beef shin in most butcher shops. Now you might just ask for soup bones. If you don't butcher your own meat and you don't raise cattle, you're going to probably have to call around. But I can buy a 3-pound bag of frozen soup bones from the local grocery store for like $3. So it's super cheap and easy. I mean, really. A few scraps of meat, anything you got left over. You can absolutely do this with a chicken carcass. Roast your chicken, save the bones. It doesn't have to be beef, and that chicken's still going to have some meat on it. But, if you're using bones from a store, they're going to be very clean. So you can add to this any kind of meat. You could add a few scraps of pork, a little game meat, veal, whatever you got. It really doesn't matter. Actually, using different meats, like 2 or 3 different critters, gives more flavor. It gives a more depth to the flavor. It's not essential, but, again, it's an easy way to use scraps. Now, don't use cured meat. Don't use, sandwich deli meat or something like that. You want actual raw meat. And Vegetable scraps, whatever you got. I mean, anything left over from making a salad or something. Onion skins and end pieces, peeled tomatoes, carrot tops, mushroom trimmings, especially mushroom trimmings are fantastic. Corn cobs, believe it or not, corn cobs work great. Cabbage stems, pepper stems and seeds, literally any scraps you have. The easiest way to do this is put your scraps in a bag in the freezer and just add to it each day. And, in a week or two, you've got plenty of vegetables either to make a stock like this or to boil to make a vegetable stock. Strain it out, and you've got a wonderful vegetable stock that you can use in many ways. Make sure there's nothing in there that's rotting or damaged or anything like that. You want fresh vegetables. Keep them in the freezer as long as you need to. Cut out all the bad spots, Just make sure nothing's mushy or nasty. You want to use good stuff, okay? And when you're ready, put your bones and vegetable scraps on a roasting pan. Put them in the oven for an hour at 400. And when the roasting's done, everything's nicely brown. Take it out and let it cool. Then you get into that delicious marrow, and I've already told you how to do that. Marrow butter, oh man, I'll stick on popcorn. Oh man, that is good. I mean, it is really good, and anything. I mean, it's rich, and it's actually very, very good for you. I mean, that's a real treat for the cook, for people you're cooking for. It's not for the dog, okay? It is a profound flavor. So while your roasted bones and all the bits of vegetables and everything are cooling, heat a stock pot. And just with a little bit of fat for this, and brown off any meat that you may be using. Just get them nice and well brown. And of course, if there's any meat left on the bones, you won't have to do this at all. Then toss everything into the pot, fill with cold water, bring it to a simmer. The stock we're making is an ingredient, we use later. So we want to season it later. No salt in this, so you can control the salt levels as you cook with it. But traditionally, you do want to add a bundle of herbs. It's called a bouquet garni, right? Bouquet garni. And it's usually bay leaf, parsley, thyme, and the green tops of leek. So really anything you have will work. It's whatever you like for your taste, I always add in an onion. And the way I do this is I take a whole onion, and I take a few cloves, at least three to 8 cloves. And the traditional way to do it is actually to make little slices in it, stick your bay leaf in the onion, and then cloves are like little nails, and you pin the bay leaves into the onion with the cloves. That's traditional French cooking technique, totally unnecessary, but it does look nice, and it does help you get all the cloves and bay out of your stock when you're done with it. Put it in and let it simmer. And the clove, really, and black peppercorn, the way it combines with the flavor of the onion and the brown bones and everything, it's really a game changer. If you ever have a stock made with bay leaf and clove and onion and black peppercorns, it will change your mind about stock. You'll never want to buy what's in the can or the carton again. I mean, it's just literally that good. Now, as it cooks, some foam may rise to the top. Skim it off if you want. I mean, just skim it off. That's just some of the proteins that are still from the meats and such that are cooking and starting to rise to the top. Now, if you wanted to be super French and fancy, you could add a beaten egg white, and it will actually kind of cook on top, and it will collect all that foam into a layer that will actually filter the soup as it cooks. That's how a consommé is made. That egg white filters out all the particles in that soup, and then you just scrape it off the top, and you have a perfectly clear soup. But being a home cook, I never do that. Absolutely never do that. And of course, if you do use the egg white, don't stir that egg white in, because you're going to stir everything back in there, and you're going to have to do it all over again. It's going to be a mess. It just sits on the top and collects everything. So I don't do that. I skim it as I go and then strain out all the bits and pieces, and now you have an honest brown beef stock. It can be used immediately. You can freeze it for later use. That's a wonderful way to do it. You can keep it in the fridge for a few days. A lot of cooks pour the cooled stock into ice cube trays. Remember the old ice trays? And freeze it. And that way you can take out, an ice cube, 2 tablespoons at a time. Super easy to use for recipes. You can do it a little at a time. You can take the ice cubes out and throw them in a Ziploc bag. And, you don't have to keep frozen stock in your ice trays if you use ice trays. But it's just good. it's just fantastic, honestly. And like I said, chicken stock can be made the exact same way. Um, anything, any kind of bones, and the meat is optional. It's really bones and vegetable stock. I did mention the shellfish stock that I usually make. Um, but it's super easy. I mean, I use shrimp heads and shrimp shells, and any crab shells that I might have, crawfish, fish bones. It's really very good. A little bit of fish meat in there. It's not going to hurt anything. Now, of course, there's a lot of fat in a shrimp head, so that if you don't like a lot of fat in your stock, which I don't, if I'm using it as an ingredient, I don't mind it at all as a soup. You would just skim that fat off, let it cool, and it'll come to the top, and just skim it off. Game stocks are super easy. I mean, deer, elk, bear, anything. Well, bear can be a little funky. It just depends on how it's been eating. But yeah, you could do a great turkey stock the same way. It's super easy. I mean, it's like the key to all good cooking. And of course, if you're unfortunate enough to be a vegetarian or vegan, omit the bones and meat, which would be a real shame. But do be sure to brown your vegetable scraps in the oven, and then make your stock out the same way. Do the cloves and the bay leaf and the bouquet garni and the onion, and it's still going to be fantastic. It just won't be as good as if you actually used meat, nor will it be as good for you. There's a ton of nutrition in there. I mean, that is the nutritional foundation of European cooking, and actually a lot of Asian cooking too. I mean, yeah. I mean, it really is fantastic. And, when the settlers came here, they found Native Americans doing basically the same stuff using different ingredients. And Mexicans make stock that's wonderful. And so every culture, our ancestors did not waste food. Remember that. Our ancestors did not waste food. Some of the oldest archaeological evidence we have, even before pots and pans, or even pottery that could be put on the fire. They would take baskets, tightly woven baskets, and coat the inside with clay, and then put hot rocks from the fire in there to boil the water, and into there went the meat and the bones and the vegetables and anything they were going to eat. They say bread's the staff of life, right? This predates bread by many, many thousands of years. And if there's one cooking technique you take from my book, this is in the Spring Foraging Guide. I got the exact same stock recipe in the Omnivore's Guide to Home Cooking. Let this be it, because it will literally change everything about your cooking for the better, about your health, about your nutrition, your economics, the way you spend money on food, and I mean, they say oh gosh, the statistics of how much food waste we have in America. I mean, for the average suburban couple, about 30% of what they buy from the grocery store ends up going in the garbage. That should never, ever, ever happen. Ever. You don't waste food. I literally believe wasting food is a sin. I believe that. I'm a religious person. I believe God gives us these wonderful things, the bounty of the earth. And when we waste it, that can't be good. Okay, in my opinion, that can't be good. And of course, there's a moral issue. You got hungry people, and it's really just not good to waste food. Okay, and that's another issue. I mean, so many of the charities, the soup kitchens and stuff, they waste a ton of food. By law, they can't use a lot of products that are past their sell-by date. Sell-by date is not a use-by date. Okay, I just bought some ground beef just the other day. And sell-by date was 1 day away from when I bought it. The guy just brought it out fresh. I said, I noticed the sell-by date's a little close here. It's only like 2 days from now. And he said, well, yeah, the sale's going off that day. We got ground beef for $3.99 a pound, so we have to have it sold by this day, or it's going to all have to be repackaged, and that's an expense we can't have. That had nothing to do with an expiration date, okay? The use-by date would probably be a month out from that date, but that was their policy. And it's even worse in government institutions and anything that gets charitable funds and gets audited, health inspectors and such. Your sell-by date and your use-by dates are two entirely different things. And I sincerely wish that would be reformed in this country. I think it is we actually our federal government, as a policy, destroys millions of pounds of produce and grain and meat every year just to keep the price up for the farmers. I mean, think about that next time they're talking about, starving people in some country. We could just take that food and give it to the hungry people. Instead, it's incinerated, it's burned. It's absolute, utter insanity. And so, yeah, if you get one message from my cookbooks, learn to make stock. Now, I said stock. Stock is made with bones. This is traditional. This is the way I was taught. Broth is made with meat. You may notice in this recipe, I said combine stock with meat. This is a stock and broth combination. Nowadays, people talk about bone broth. That's actually a contradiction in terms. Bone broth is a stock. I know it can get confusing. I prefer to stick with traditional classical definitions for stock and broth. Stock may include meat, but stock is always made from bones. Broth may include bones, but broth is always made with meat or vegetables or fish or anything like that. And as you play around with them, you're going to come up with just so many phenomenal recipes. This will elevate your cooking, especially if you use wild food. This will elevate your cooking beyond a formal culinary education. I am not kidding you. I've talked with so many chefs that went to some pretty good culinary schools, and they're like, yeah, we learned to make stock, but, in service, we just use broth from the cartons and cans. And I'm like, okay, you're buying broth, incurring that expense, and throwing away perfectly good food rather than just keep a stock pot going. I mean, this is this kind of thing I cannot comprehend. And one of the main reasons I don't eat at many restaurants anymore, because you're never going to find a stock pot at a commercial a chain restaurant, okay? You're not going to go into a restaurant that has a location in various cities and gets everything frozen from Cisco and U.S. Foods, where the chef is basically just a microwaver in chief. They're never going to have a stock pot. If you can find a real old family-owned restaurant that still does things the way they did 50 years ago, Italian, Greek, French, Mexican, whatever, certainly Vietnamese. They are pho, I should say. Yeah, I totally mispronounced that one, didn't I? That's the way it's spelled. It often comes out that way when it pops into my mind. But pho is totally broth and stock based. I mean, and it's a Vietnamese version of French pot au feu, which is the traditional essentially beef stew that I just explained to you how to make. So, but yeah, try that French onion soup. Even if you bought everything from the store, you can make a pot of French onion soup, which will blow your mind. It will blow the minds of everybody who eats it. And what are you talking? 50 cents a bowl? Probably less than that, because you're using vegetable scraps, you're using bones. What's 3 pounds of onions these days? $3, and you're going to end up making 2-3 gallons of soup. You could, or you can make a half gallon, whatever. But it's really cheap. I'm telling you, economically, you learn to make stocks and broths, you will be able to cook and eat better than, like an ex-girlfriend of mine. She said you eat like a king and you spend less money on food than anybody I've ever met. And it's true. And it's because I use these old classical, traditional cooking techniques that were passed down through my family, and that I've learned more about on my own. And the heart of it, the base of it, is the stock pot. It really is, even more than sourdough bread or anything like that. It's the stock pot. You will make gravy out of that stock and put it over mashed potatoes and say, this is the best thing I've ever eaten in my entire life. And what do you got there? You got 10 cents worth of a gravy and what, another quarter on a big roasting potato, if you wanted to do that. I don't know. Grocery prices vary across the country, but I can still buy 5 pounds of russets for $3, and in this economy after Biden inflation. So I'm telling you, this is the way to go. And if more people did this, there'd be a whole lot less credit card debt and a whole lot, I believe it would make intact families, because people are eating together and family meals and fewer financial concerns. I'm really again, I'm going to say, the family table is the heart of the home. And cooking from scratch will do more for you, your health, your family's health, your relationships, your well-being, your outlook on life than just about anything I know. I mean, I guess it was Hippocrates that said, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." That's the heart and soul of this program. Now, let's talk about our medicinal herb for the week. And of course, ramps are incredibly medicinal, so I don't really need to separate them. I don't really need to separate them that much. But as promised, I'm going to talk about American beautyberry. This is a Latin name, Calicarpa. And there are 5 varieties of beautyberry that have documented use in herbal medicine. That includes Calicarpa americana, American beautyberry, but also several Asian varieties. It grows in Japan and several Asian countries. Only American beautyberry is native to my region, but 2 have been naturalized. That includes Chinese beautyberry and Japanese beautyberry. And as best I can tell, they're probably interchangeable. But the research done on beautyberry was done as University of Mississippi, and I believe they also, in Louisiana, one of their universities researched it as well. But in 2006, researchers at the U.S. Department of Agriculture Natural Products Utilization Research Unit, there's a nice government name for you, in Oxford, Mississippi, which is a wonderful town. Really, I mean, Athens, Georgia is my spiritual hometown. You know, I went to UGA. I love it. Oxford is a pretty darn close rival when it comes to a great Southern college town. Unfortunately, I cannot say that about Chapel Hill, North Carolina, or Raleigh, North Carolina, or Durham. No, those are basically hellholes, okay? Oxford, Mississippi, and Athens, Georgia are phenomenal. They really, really are. And I'm sorry, yes, I know Cassie Clark and some of my other diehard North Carolina listeners are going to get really upset that I said that. But no, there's no comparison. There is no comparison whatsoever. Charlottesville used to be a really nice place. It's not anymore. And unfortunately, even Athens and Oxford are getting taken over by the retired baby boomers, and they're bringing in all their chain restaurants and driving out the small, funky little businesses and weird little neighborhoods that made them so special. And same's true of Austin. Austin, Texas used to be phenomenal, and now it's really not it's still weird, but it's not a place I want to hang out in, and it goes double for Asheville, North Carolina. But anyway, I've wandered far afield. We're back to Oxford, Mississippi. They found that extracts from the beautyberry leaves could match DEET, D-E-E-T, from repelling mosquitoes. Now, if you know much about DEET, it is an excellent mosquito repellent. It is toxic. It can have health effects on the person that uses it. There's been a lot of research saying it's bad for wildlife. Some people say it is, some people say it isn't, but it definitely is not good for your health. The experiment showed that the active ingredients from the leaves provided 100% repellency of black-legged ticks for 3 hours. That's super important. If you're concerned about Lyme disease, super important. In 2008, the 4-person research team headed by chemist Charles Cantrell of Mississippi and entomologist Jerome Klum of Maryland published research that added fire ants to the list of pests repelled by the essential oil distilled from beautyberry leaves. Now, essential oils are always stronger. Fire ants are horrific. I hate them. They seem to have a bloodlust for me. If there's one within 10 yards, it's coming after me. So one of the few times I would use an essential oil on my skin, they did not recommend it. I would cut it with a neutral oil because essential oils can generally burn the skin. So you need to look a little bit more into that. You could certainly put it on your socks, your shoes, your clothes, if you didn't want it directly on your skin. That's from an article, Natural Insect Repellent Beautyberry Banishes Bad Biting Bugs, by Barbara Pleasant from Mother Earth News. Barbara has a knack for alliteration, we shall say. Beyond its medicinal use against mosquitoes, Plants for Future states Medicinal use of American beautyberry, a decoction of the root bark has been used as a diuretic. The leaves are a cure for dropsy. A leaf tea made from the roots is used in the treatment of dysentery and stomach aches. A tea made from the roots and berries is used in the treatment of colic. Some native North American tribes use the leaves and roots in sweat baths for the treatment of malaria, rheumatism, and fevers. Beyond that, the Peterson Field Guide for Eastern and Central Medicinal Plants tells us American Indians used the root and leaf tea in sweat baths for rheumatism, fevers, and malaria. Root tea was used for dysentery and stomach aches. Root and berry tea was used for colic. Formerly used in the South for dropsy and as a blood purifier in skin diseases. It likely has an effect on the liver if that be the case. The Chinese used the leaves of the related Calocarpus species to stop bleeding of wounds, and it is also used to treat flu in children and for menstrual disorders. So, this is an extremely useful plant. It is commonly found in landscaping. It has these pretty purple berries on it, which is why it's called beautyberry. They're like lavender colored. You definitely want to get one of these in your yard. We have so many mosquito-borne illnesses that are really beginning to surface. I mean, everybody knows about malaria. Malaria's been around for a long time. Various forms of encephalitis. It seems that some of our, just this week, the CIA has admitted that the COVID-19 virus came from the bioweapons lab in Wuhan, China. They still think it was an accidental release, but they now know it was not natural. And as I said all along, it did not come from a wet market. It came from a chemistry lab. And remember, I was kicked off of YouTube for saying that. Or was it Facebook? One of them I was kicked off of for making fun of Dr. Fauci, and the other one for saying it came from the lab. Seems like that one was Facebook. It's true, and everybody knew it, and now they're finally admitting it. Well, these labs have been doing this stuff for a long time. There's a lot of evidence that Rocky Mountain spotted fever, also known as Lyme disease, was invented by our government in a bioweapons lab in Lyme County, Pennsylvania. Apparently they had this great idea to infect ticks and drop them in Russia to kill a bunch of people. And instead it got out, and we now have that. Seems recently, maybe even just the last year or two, some, I think, private-public partnerships, quasi-government, privately funded people in white coats have decided to introduce new diseases into mosquitoes, just for fun, apparently. I don't know. And that's going to be, it's threatening to become an issue. I mean, apparently they've been trying to put vaccines in mosquitoes. They've been trying to put birth control into mosquitoes and corn. Isn't that nice? You could eat an ear of corn and it could make you infertile. Yeah, apparently they want to wipe out a lot of people, and they think that's going to be good for everybody. Now they're putting stuff into mosquitoes. Grow some beautyberry. I'm going to say I would absolutely prioritize getting a few of these beautyberry bushes and learning to use them. Of course, we have other herbs that are good insect repellents, especially as essential oils. Eucalyptus, the mint family, all of them. Mosquitoes don't really like them. A lot of them can help keep fleas and ticks and chiggers away, and that's all good. Wormwood's been used, for thousands of years for this purpose. And various other lavender has some repellent effects and such as that. Beautyberry, if it is actually, from what they said, as effective as DEET to repel mosquitoes, and apparently more effective than DEET for ticks, I would say this is just absolutely essential. So, y'all, I think in this actually may be one of the most important episodes of the podcast I've done, considering these threats that we're facing, and I mean, economic issues and all that. Good food and some ways to keep from being bitten by disease-carrying insects. Definitely a good idea. Definitely. I mean, look, one of the closest times I came to death, I was down in Georgia. Now, in North Carolina, we got fleas, and we got ticks, and we got chiggers, and we got all that. I'm used to going out fishing and being in the woods and such, and dealing with that. You spray down with Deep Woods Off, which has DEET in it, and you tuck your jeans into your boots, and you do everything, right? I never ran into anything like this. Very rural part of Georgia. Went out with a friend to do some fishing. We're going after catfish, and we're running trot lines. And we're out there in summertime, and I took every precaution. And you never feel when a chigger bites you. You never know it. We must have gotten into a nest of chiggers. I mean, red bugs are sometimes called. They're almost like microscopic little spiders, and they will eat you up. And I mean, by the next morning, I was suddenly covered in hundreds of bites from head to toe. I mean, they got through everything. I mean, they got through the insect repellent, they got through the clothing, they got through everything. And before I knew what had happened, some of the bites had become infected, and I spiked a fever. I almost died. I mean, I am not kidding you. A little bug bite can actually be a very big deal. Luckily, we had a good old GP, a man, a general practitioner. You don't find him anymore. That's a shame. It's one of the main problems with modern medicine. It's gotten so specialized we don't have GPs anymore. So we went to him, and he was kind of old, country doctor where you go in and it doesn't matter what he does. He's not going to charge you more than about $50, for a doctor visit and a prescription. And they had a compounding pharmacy right in the office. So, I mean, that's what we need to bring back if you want to make healthcare affordable in America again. I don't even think he took insurance. You literally just paid him cash, and he could take care of anything. So little old man, about 75, maybe 5.5 feet tall. And here I am, 24 years old, probably at the time, 220 pounds, 6'4", and I'm coming in there and I'm about to die. And I was just recently getting over my back injury. I had serious inflammation in my low back and my sciatic especially. He gets a shot of antibiotics and jabs it right into my sciatic nerve. I blacked out immediately, fell on him like a tree, almost killed him and me both. Do not take bug bites lightly. They may just be an annoyance. Citronella, there's another good one you can use, lemongrass, citronella. They may just be an annoyance in the summertime, but they can get really serious, really serious. In early America, malaria, yellow fever, another mosquito-borne illness, these wiped out huge populations. I mean, that between malaria, yellow fever, and dysentery, that's what killed most of our ancestors. They didn't worry about diabetes and heart disease. They worried about mosquitoes. That's, recently President Trump's been talking about all the tens of thousands, literally, of Americans who died building the Panama Canal. They died because of mosquito-borne malaria. That's literally what killed them. I mean, it was not some mysterious disease or being attacked by somebody. They died from mosquitoes. And, apparently now there's stuff going around in mosquitoes that you don't even want to know about. So, and don't forget, you can get 45% off the Magic Mind bundle using the code magicmind.com/JCarroll, JAN. So definitely take advantage of that if you're interested. Anyway, y'all, have a great week. It's cold weather, time to make that onion soup. Good for your immune system, get you through the cold and flu season, and it will blow your mind. Have a good one. I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.